Hi everyone, it's Shannon. I am so glad you're here with me today. I was doing some cleaning of the basement and I came across some thrift store items that I had completely forgotten all about. Since we're in quarantine, our thrift store, my favorite thrift store, is closed, so that's sad, but it's fun to come across items like this that you saw at one point, had a vision for, and now finally it's their time to get revamped. So let me go ahead and share with you how I'm going to make over these 3 thrift store items. I feel like it's always a score when you can find a blank wreath like this one that was only $2 at the thrift store. I'm using some old flowers and greenery, my hot glue gun, and some wire ribbon. I always lay out my flowers first, starting with the largest and working my way down in size before I use my hot glue to make sure they're on there securely and more permanently. And then I thought I'd show you how to make a quick bow. This is some wire ribbon, and you just start by making a loop on one side, and then you're gonna make a loop on the other side. So you can see my tail is kind of sandwiched in between, in the middle there. So I kind of have a figure 8 type of pattern going on. Now I am twisting this in the middle, and the reason I'm doing that is because my ribbon has a pattern on one side. So you don't have to twist it if your ribbon has pattern on both sides of the ribbon, but again, I am twisting this ribbon in the middle to make sure that my pattern will be looped over on top so you can see it. So I basically just repeated making loops on both sides until I had 6 loops total. Now I'm making one more loop in the middle. This one's going to be about half the size of the other loops because it's going to be the center loop of the bow. So I just tucked that tail back underneath there. You can see all of my loops, and then that middle loop at the very top. You want to make sure to keep your fingers really tight in the middle to make sure that you don't lose that center part of your bow. Usually I like to use pipe cleaners to secure the center of my bows, but I don't have any of those on hand, so I'm just using jute here. And as you can see, I'm pulling it up through that middle loop and wrapping it around the middle of the bow a couple times before pulling it tight in the back. And then I knotted it a few times to make sure it was secure. And then at this point, you kind of flip up your loops to make sure they look pretty. Cut those extra tails off, and the fluffing is what really makes your bow look nice. I always add my tails on after my bow is made so that I don't have to worry about the tails getting in the way as I'm making the bow. So I actually cut a completely separate piece of ribbon and tie it onto the back with those extra pieces of jute that we left long on there. And then I use that jute to secure it onto the wreath form as well. You also want to make sure you kind of pull it tight and tuck your bow into those flowers. And next I cut some V shapes into the ends of the tails to give them a finished look. And then last is when I added all of my greenery. This kind of makes it look more full and gives it that pretty springy or summertime look. This pretty pop of pink with the robin's egg blue door is just a happy addition to my she shed, and I love even more that it did not cost me more than a few dollars to make, using thrift store items and things I already had around the house. Next, these chicken wire containers were only $1 each at the thrift store. I'm going to be using some white chalk paint and some 4-ply thicker jute to dress them up. So I started by cleaning everything really well. Especially if you're getting things from the thrift store, you want to make sure to disinfect everything before you start crafting. And then I gave the whole thing 2 coats of the white chalk paint, and I let it dry in between coats. Now you could do 1, and that would be more of a rustic look, but I kind of wanted more of the white look so it would stand out against the jute that I would be adding next. I purchased this 4-ply jute at Walmart, and I'm just using my hot glue gun to attach it and wrap it around and around the bottom half of both of these containers. It also looked like these containers were missing some handles, so I gave them some jute handles. Really easy, and just wrapped them around each other. It kind of gave it more of a nautical look, which was really pretty. And then I repeated all of this on the second smaller one as well. These really have a fresh and updated look. I feel like they went from a rustic farmhouse feel to more of an updated, fresh, and modern farmhouse look. This tie and belt rack is going to get the biggest change of all. It was only $2 from the thrift store. I do have a drill, my handsaw, and miter box, which I will link down in the description box, with my hot glue gun and some more chalk paint, and then I have a couple small dowel rods on hand too. So we're going to be cutting quite a bit here. This one had some holes built into the end so you could attach it to the wall, so I wanted to cut those off first. So I'm just using my handsaw and miter box to cut off the ends. You just line it up, and the miter box keeps it straight and secure, and you just take your saw and go back and forth until you saw all the way through the wood. I also flipped this around so I could cut the other end of the tie rack off too. Next, I used a tape measure just to find the middle of the tie rack so that I could cut it in half. So I just measured it out, marked the middle, took it back over to my miter box, and sawed through the center. So here's a look at the basic pieces. I cut the ends off and cut it in half, and we're not done sawing yet. I wanted to remove part of the dowel rods that were in there, or the little pegs, so I cut one end of each side off, so I was left with just one row each instead of two. I also decided to save these little pegs because you never know when those could come in handy for another project. I repeated this on the other one so I'd only have one row of those pegs instead of two. And then the last thing that needed to be cut down are these dowel rods. I cut mine down to about 3.5 inches long. I have two of them, but depending on the size of plates you want to display, you might want to cut yours longer or shorter. And next, I measured in 1 inch from each side and then drilled a hole. You want to make sure your drill bit is just a little bit bigger than your dowel rods, but not by much. And I also used some wood glue in those holes before attaching the dowel rods into the holes. And then I even used a hammer to kind of help make sure the whole thing was together securely. And now to finish the piece, I did take some sandpaper to it because obviously we did a lot of cutting on here. We have some sharp edges we don't want. I'm going to be starting with some elephant gray chalk paint, so I gave it one coat of that. I want it to have kind of a chippy, weathered wood look in the end, so I gave it the gray finish first, and then I came back in and did 2 coats of the white chalk paint over the top of it. Second, you want to let some of that gray paint show through the white, and that's what will give you that beautiful chippy look. It is just amazing to me how far $2 can go at the thrift store. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Let me know down in the comments which one of these 3 projects was your favorite. If you haven't subscribed, I hope you will, because I bring you new DIYs and weekly inspiration, and I'll have even more inspiration and tutorials popping up on your screen I hope you will check out. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye everyone.